I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, as 2018 wraps up and we head into 2019, changes are coming in Washington, D.C., and I'm honored today to have our Congressman Billy Long joining us to update us on what's happening in Washington. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Judy. It's always fun to come over here and do this show with you.
A chance to update people on what's happening. I guess probably one of the reactions viewers might want to know, we've had the November election, changes are coming. What are your feelings about what's going to happen in Washington?
Right. It's going to be a very interesting time in Washington. We're going back to a divided government. I contend we've had a divided government. Everyone said, well, you have the House, you have the White House, you have the Senate. But as we've talked on this program before, if you don't have 60 votes in the Senate, you really don't have much. So you do have Leader McConnell, you have Republican leader, but if they can't come to cloture and get 60 votes even to bring a bill to the floor, then you can't get too much done without the Democrats. And in the House side, it's going to be a complete change. And Nancy Pelosi is going to be the new Speaker of the House. And I've never served in the minority, so it's going to be a new experience for me. And a lot of people say, oh, you'll have more fun. You come in and you throw bombs every day and that's all you do. Well, that's not my personality. I don't come in and, raise a ruckus and get on the floor and scream about things that I know are not going to accomplish anything. I try and work hard every day, and with my staff and with our committee staff, and try and work on problems, not come in and just hurl bombs at the other side, which is what the Democrats have done to us for 8 years. They like to disrupt things and call emergency votes where you've got to be on one side of campus, you've got to run over to the other side of campus and vote just because they're wanting to put on a show. So I hope that my colleagues on the Republican side really take it seriously and want to work and not just throw bombs.
Well, that's something probably a lot of voters are wondering about as far as the partisanship in Washington. And, is Congress going to get together and talk to each other?
Yeah, every Democrat I see, I say, you know what? I've been meaning to tell you how much I like you. And, it just slipped my mind for 8 years, but I really, really like you. So, yeah. They usually laugh. And, we're going to be working together with the Democrats. And that's what the American public voted for. That's what they want. Every president's first election, midterm election, your party most generally always loses seats, and we lost enough to go out of the majority. And so, like I say, Nancy Pelosi will be back in charge. You're going to have Maxine Waters, head of financial services, which will be interesting. Jerry Nadler, head of judiciary. So there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of different things. And the Democrats are going to have subpoena power. So they're going to go after the president tooth and nail. They're going to be putting out subpoenas on everyone that they can possibly find. Anyone that can, as we used to say in the real estate business, fog a mirror. You put a mirror under somebody's nose, and if they breathe and it fogs it, then they're going to be, subpoenaing those people. So it'll be interesting, and the Republicans, of course, will be pushing back against that. And we've got the Mueller investigation that apparently is wrapping up, and we'll see what happens. They've made some pretty high-profile sentencing and things of some of his people. His personal attorney got sentenced to 3 years the other day, and so it's going to be interesting times in Washington, D.C.
So a lot of headlines probably after the first of the year.
Right. I don't know if you can have more than we have now. It seems like we have a new headline every 10 minutes. So.
Well, you mentioned committees. You continue to serve on the same committees?
Yes, I'm on Energy and Commerce, which is considered an A committee. We have more jurisdiction than any committee in Washington, D.C., and I'm on the top 3 subcommittees of Energy and Commerce. So I'm on telecom and healthcare and energy, which are all very important to Southwest Missouri. So Roy Blunt was on Energy and Commerce before me. I'm the only member from Missouri that is on Energy and Commerce. So sometimes I need to represent the whole state. I'll go up to Kansas City to talk to the Children's Hospital or St. Louis or things, being the only member that's on Energy and Commerce. So it kind of widens my geography where I need to be and who I need to report into and see what's going on.
And people don't realize all that committee work that goes on, like I say, behind the scenes, but it's not really behind closed doors, but goes on before we even hear about things discussed on the floor.
Right, and that's where the true work is done, and that's where I put the majority of my time, and I try and get to the hearings early, and I try and stay through the entire hearing. Now, if someone comes to visit me from Joplin or Springfield or Branson or whatever, and it has an appointment with me, my staff will bring them over to the committee room, and we'll go off to a side room, which is another thing that's going to change. We have a suite of offices on the Energy and Commerce Committee, a suite, lots of offices, lots of people in there. guess who's going to be in those offices come November?
With the change of
the
control.
Democrats. We actually switched office space for the committee. We're going to have, I haven't even been in there and looked, but I understand it's one small room and a little ante room. So we're going to go from suites of offices down to 2 very small rooms. So I may be having some meetings out in the hallway, because used to be I could grab one of those suites and have people come in that had come to see me and talk about their issues and problems that they have back here in the district that we can help them work on. So it's going to be interesting. The only real estate that doesn't change is our cloakrooms. We stay in our cloakroom. The Democrats stay in theirs, which is handy, because we're on the right side of the house. They're on the left side as you're facing the speaker. And so, it'd be silly to cross over each other. Although, we do go back and forth a lot and visit on the floor with the Democrats, and they come over to our side. And so,
no line down the middle or the side.
No, there's no line down the middle of the house.
Right. And of course, the changes come to your offices as well. Many people are changing with people coming and going.
That is the most amazing. I really wish that you could just film this and put in a time capsule and then slow down not time capsule, but a time elapsed film and show what goes on. It is incredible. There's either 230 or 240 offices that have to be gutted, redone every time.
You vote somebody in, somebody comes.
Right. I think there's around 100 new congressmen coming in. So out of 435, 335 are in their existing office. Well, those people, based on seniority, can choose a better office. If there's some old timers that left and have been there a long time and had the Capitol views, beautiful views of the Capitol and things, then people that were below them a shorter period of time in town, then they've taken those better offices,
so
and then that office is better than the guys behind him. And so there's over 200 offices that will be completely flipped, which is amazing. The architects of the Capitol do all that work, and they're amazing, the work they do. But there's trash bins on casters out in the hall everywhere. There's furniture all up and down the hall. And when you go to pick your office, sometimes you qualify for new carpet, sometimes you qualify for new drapes, sometimes you qualify for new paint, sometimes all three, sometimes none of the above. So they try and do it judiciously. They just don't say, all right, we're just gonna rip out a carpet. Everyone gets a budget, and it comes out of our allowance, our annual, money that we get to run our office. So you have to be careful what you do with that money. And some people, they may hate the color that their walls are, maybe they're bright red or something, and they want a eggshell color. Well, then that member can pay that out of their own pocket. And I was in my first office on the Hill for the first 3 terms. I moved this last term, and I'm not moving this time.
You'll be the same place.
It's so much easier just to stay where you are. And I have a little bit of a view of the Washington Monument. I don't look at the Capitol. I haven't been there long enough to get a Capitol view, but it's handy where it is. You can park under the building and come up, and you're fairly close to my office from where our parking spot is, and our committee's in that building, so it makes it pretty easy. And then there's another set of elevators that takes you down, and then you can walk over to the Capitol underground there, or you can take a tram over if you want to. So
it's convenient. And a lot of people don't realize that behind the scenes. What about the number of new members? You have a good percentage of new people. Is it going to take a while for the newcomers to learn how Congress works?
Yeah, some of them apparently don't think so, because they're trying to tell us what to do already, and they're telling what committees they want, and they're telling Nancy Pelosi that they want on the A committees, which is Energy and Commerce. Well, no freshman on the Democrat side has ever gotten on Energy and Commerce that I know of.
Really?
Even Debbie Dingell, when her husband went out of Congress, and he was chairman emeritus of Energy and Commerce. He'd been there forever. He got elected to Congress the year I was born, 1955, and he only left like three terms ago. So 4 or 6 years ago he left, and Debbie came in, his wife, and she didn't even get on Energy and Commerce her first year. Now you've got some of these young people that you read about that took out some of the older members, and they're, progressives and socialists and everything, and they're telling Pelosi, I won, you're going to put me on Energy and Commerce, or you're going to put me on Ways and Means, which is another A committee. And she's like, I don't think so. But she's had a tough time garnering enough votes to get the gavel, but I can't see anyone else having the gavel. She got health care through. She got a lot of things done when she was there before, and if you're a Democrat, you love that. So
they're going to have a lot of behind the scenes on their side, working things out before you come back and so forth. Well, let's talk about some of the areas affecting our district as well, and what you hear from people. I know recently we heard about the I-49 project, which we in the Joplin area have been talking about for years and wanting to connect it with Arkansas.
Right, and we finally got that through the Build Fund, we applied for that, and all the senators down in Arkansas, the senators in Missouri, the congressmen in this part of Missouri and that part of Arkansas, southwest Missouri, and northwest Arkansas and southwest Missouri got together and worked on that and got that done. So we were really excited about that. That's great news. And that's another bipartisan effort. And that's why the bomb throwing to me isn't effective, doesn't do any good. You need to work together instead of just running in trying to, cause disruption and problems and hold up the timing on things when you know that no legislation is going to get passed. You're just making a scene for yourself to get yourself on cable TV.
Another area that was a lot of rural areas around here interested in the Farm Bill, which was the headlines as well. Just recently.
Right, and we got that done, and every Republican in the state voted for the Farm Bill with the exception of Vicki Hartzler, and I want to send out condolences to Vicki. Her dad passed away unexpectedly this last week, and Vicki was not able to be there. They called her and said that your dad's bad, and by the time she got home, unfortunately, he was deceased, and so she missed. So if you see that Vicki didn't vote on the Farm Bill, that's why her father passed away. Apparently he was out cutting wood one day and had a stroke the next, so they had no idea anything was wrong with him.
So for the people who are watching, what does the Farm Bill mean for our area?
It straightens out a lot of the programs. It really helps the dairy farmers, and it's got a lot of the way that the disaster relief is set up to check different parameters on how the disaster relief will be handled depending on the crop year and everything. So there's a lot of good in the Farm Bill. Great.
So you're hearing from people that they're looking forward to those benefits.
Very happy. We're very happy.
Of course, this is the week when Congress is facing the deadline for the budget, and of course, the show will probably air as well after that. But that's something that seems to become a recurrent issue in Washington. We have to get a budget. Right.
On the 21st of December, which is probably before the show airs, but being that the recording of this week, I'm headed back Wednesday morning, and I heard Chuck Schumer on TV today, and it depends on who wants to spin the story, but he said Paul Ryan sent his people home. He sent Congress home because there was nothing to do, that we're not going to build the wall, and he's bringing it back Wednesday. Well, the truth of the matter is, Chuck, this week was always scheduled. All 5 days were a home district work week where we're supposed to be doing Judy Stiles' show and be doing things here in the district, working in the district. But they called us in unexpectedly for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So he can say they let us go home Monday, Tuesday, which really didn't happen. So, but that's what we've got to get done Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or the government. Now, when we say government shutdown, in the past, when the government shut down, it shut down. This time, only 1/4 of the government would shut down because we already have 3/4. We really did our work this year on appropriations. People say Congress doesn't get anything done, you guys don't get anything. Well, we worked really hard to get all the appropriation bills out, including the military, so the military folks don't have to worry about not getting paid or anything. And then while I'm speaking about the military, the Veterans Administration Clinic is finally had kind of a soft opening in Springfield. They were seeing some patients there, and by December 31 they should be fully functioning, and then I think later in January they're going to have a groundbreaking grand opening there for our veterans, which is very much deserved. And then of course we've got the VA clinic coming down to Joplin here, so that's going to be really good for the veterans, and it'll reach out a wider area veterans can come in.
So it's nice to have that larger service area where they have that one location to come to, especially the Joplin service area.
Right, exactly.
Not to drive so far to get there and tie those together.
Growing area here in Joplin.
Right. Well, when you look at things and say growing areas, the economy, people talk about the economy. What are you hearing as far as in your district, people's thoughts about the economy?
The tax bill has really put a lot of people to work. It's really created a lot of new jobs, and the economy's been going along very, very well. One problem is that the Federal Reserve, has seemed to think it's going too good. They were worried about inflation and things, and well, let's slow this down. So they've had a couple of interest rate hikes, which people, I don't know, below baby boomers anyway, a lot of them haven't experienced the 17, 18, 19% interest rates that we experienced back in the day. And so if you raise it 1/4 of a point or whatever, they freak out and, that's terrible. But then the president's saying, what are you doing? You're going to kill my economy. It's going good. Jobs are being created. Machinery is being ordered. Things are being manufactured. Leave us alone, Fed. Don't raise the rates up where it's so exorbitantly expensive to do business. So now the Fed's kind of taking a second look, I think. The stock market has not done well this year. It's going gone down, bonds have gone down, and so I think that, you know, they're really worried about the economy right now because the Fed kind of, I don't know if they got out over their skis or not, but that's their job, that's their function. I don't want the president to tell the Fed what to do because that's not his job, but, you know, to get a plug or two in and say, hey, you want to relook at this, which they have relooked at it now, and a lot of the Fed officials are saying, well, maybe we won't raise again this year, and maybe we'll only do one raise next year.
Now, there's also trade issues. We've had, you know, a lot of talk about trade, and I know recently you've heard about working with Mexico and Canada on trade agreements. You know, how does the effect of that looking at the district?
That's another tough one. They have reworked NAFTA. I don't even know the new name that they call the new NAFTA now. I guess, but they're going to have trouble getting that through. And so that's kind of, the president worked hard with Mexico and Canada, and they both, especially Canada, very begrudgingly came to the table on what I call the new NAFTA. But now the House members, Republican and Democrats, both seem to have issues with it and say we're not going to pass it. So that's something people need to watch for, is the trade front. And worldwide trade and all the tariffs that have been implemented. I know there's some businesses here in Joplin that are very adversely affected with the tariffs that have been put in place. And we are hopeful that that will get worked out and some exemptions will be given on certain types of materials that are used specifically here in Joplin. One or two businesses I can think of that I've toured. I know Claire McCaskill worked on that too. And again, in a bipartisan effort, worked with Claire in trying to get some of these tariffs that affect some very specific products that weren't intended to be affected in the first place. But the president always has a long-term end game, and China's economy has done very poorly too. And it's kind of like a game of chicken right now. I think who's going to swerve first, because China, you know, wants to be able to put all these big tariffs on us that they've had for a long time. And we'd be fine with no tariffs anywhere in the world. That's kind of would be our goal. That's not going to happen. But China raised their tariffs on automobiles to combat what Trump was doing, and now they've backed off of those raises. Well, that's back where they started. So I don't know how much has been accomplished there, but yeah, I have faith in Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross and the folks to try and, you know, get these trade deals worked out.
So a lot working on behind the scenes once again, trying to get this.
Right.
You can then decide what you're going to do with that. You talked about international, and of course there's global concerns as well. You know, international relations. What do you feel is some of the challenges continuing to face us as far as those international policies?
One word, China. China is everywhere you go, everywhere you travel, all around the world. China is getting their tentacles everywhere, and they have 3 icebreakers now. What do they need icebreakers for? They even down at Easter Island, which is 2,000 miles from anywhere, an island of I think 7,000 people. They want to do fiber optics there, and they're doing big projects in Bosnia Herzegovina. I was there back in July, and they're doing infrastructure projects all over the world, trying to, you know, buy favor with countries, and it's working. China's got a long-term game plan, and so China is our biggest concern, I think. Russia, of course, is a very big concern also, but China would be a number one.
So through the trade and through the impact they're having of those ties with the other countries, they're really having an influence on things.
Right, and not so much the trade deal as it is that they have a long-term game plan, and they're working their plan, and these islands in the South China Sea that they've developed and they've militarized them, and we've sat by and watched and said, oh, you know, they're just doing that to pick up wayward fishermen, is what they told us. And so I don't really know when the day of reckoning will come on China, but there's going to have to be an agreement of some type to where they're just not king of the world, which is, you know, what they're working for. And if you travel to New Zealand or wherever you go, people are enthralled with China. They're like, oh, look at this road project they're doing for us. They're building this bridge for us. So they're trying to buy influence around the world, and it's working.
Well, international relations, we also hear about the Middle East, and recently there's concern about Saudi Arabia and the relationships over there, and some people get confused sometimes as far as how complicated things can be in a region like that.
They can be very complicated. I was in a briefing the other day with Secretary Pompeo and General Mattis, and they were trying to explain the Saudi thing and the killing of the Washington Post journalist, and I'm sorry, but I'm not buying their story right now, and I'm very concerned with what happened. It's kind of like Lindsey Graham said, that, you know, if you want to be, you know, a friend and an ally, you should think before you cut up a journalist next time.
Right. So a lot of things that have impact and tying things along those areas. You mentioned the Congress going into the new year. People are probably curious, when you have the break over Christmas, when do you actually officially go back in January then?
January 3rd is generally always the day that the new Congress starts. So we're in the 115th Congress now. There's 435 members of Congress. On January 2nd, there'll be the 115th Congress. On January 3rd, we will swear in the 116th Congress, and there will be over 100 new congressmen out of 435, and that's really something that, in my background as an auctioneer and a real estate broker for 30 years and owning my own business before I went to Congress, if you were in my company 20 years or less, you were one of the newer people there. And now, I joke, I say, unless they've been there 3 terms, I don't bother to learn their names, because a lot of people are there for a cup of coffee. They're there 1 term and out, some less than 1 term, some are 2 terms, and it's just amazing. But this time, really, with what went on in Georgia with the governor's race, that brought a lot of people out to the polls. Well, that took out more Republican congressmen. Texas, I talked to 2 long-term congressmen down there that had been in Congress a long time and had always been very, very popular with their constituencies. They said, well, Hurricane Beto took them out. Beto O'Rourke, when he ran against Ted Cruz, he didn't win, but he brought so many people to the polls that there was an undercurrent that just swept all these Republican congressmen out. So a lot of institutional knowledge was lost. Pete Sessions, who was chairman of the Rules Committee, Bill Sessions, his father, used to be FBI director years ago, and John Culberson down in Texas, all got wiped out.
So when people look at Congress and its makeup, do you feel that the people are paying more attention? You have huge voter turnout, or bigger, I say, voter turnout than maybe for midterm. Do you feel that across the country people are paying more attention and they're voicing through polls?
I think that people are paying somewhat more attention, but the big thing is getting people out to vote. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, that's what you need to do, is drive your voters to the polls and make sure that they get out and vote. Because a lot of people complain at the coffee shop in the morning and the bar in the afternoon that what's going on in Washington and all their, we ought to do this, we ought to do that. But then you say, well, how'd you vote in the Missouri Senate race? Oh, I didn't vote, Oh, okay. Well, now let's hear, what are the rest of your complaints? So I think it is important to get people to, become involved and get them out there and make sure that they do exercise their right and get out and vote.
And it's across all generations. You mentioned, the people that are the younger generation as well as the older generation.
Right. Historically, the older generation, you never really need to worry about them. I mean, my grandmother, my folks, my grandparents, myself, I've very rarely ever missed any kind of election, baby boomers such as myself. But it seems like the younger generation, a lot of them, I've seen 28-year-old people say, well, this is the first time I ever voted, and people in their 30s, I never voted before. I've seen people in their 50s that voted this last election that said, I'd never voted before in my life. So you got to wonder, what were those people thinking? Who's picking their leaders? And, from the courthouse to, the United States Capitol, who's picking their leaders if they're not bothering to vote?
It'd be important at all levels of government and tying that together.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I know you still have your offices in Joplin, Springfield, representing the constituents.
You bet.
That's something that's an ongoing service that you're providing. I imagine those offices are busy year-round as well.
Oh, yeah. We handle a lot of casework. If people have problems with the Corps of Engineers, they have problems with the IRS, if they have problems with the Veterans Administration, whatever it is, we have people that handle specifically those duties. And the highlight of my day, my week, my month is when I get notes, cards, letters, emails, people praising my staff. Oh, you can't believe how good this person is that handled this case for me, or this person is that did this work. They went above and beyond the call of duty, and you need to know that, Mr. Long, because when you get a letter like that, there's 10 letters that didn't come, that people didn't take the time to write and express how grateful they are for your staff. And I have, a large percentage of my staff has been with me since day one. And so that's really important for continuity and to keep people, in the same positions, people move in different roles and things, But where we can really, and then the constituents feel like they know your office. That, they'll call them by name, say, hey, I went over and talked to so-and-so, or this person comes to all the meetings, and you can notice I'm not using names.
Right.
I don't want to, give
right.
credit to one and somebody else say, hey, you didn't mention my name on that TV interview.
Right. But if someone who's watching would like to contact you, there's the best way to have email, obviously, through your website and information that way.
I'm sorry I don't know the Joplin number off the top of my head, but Springfield's 889-1800, 417-889-1800, and I could tell you the DC one, but it's better to call Springfield and get it, because I may get mixed up on the DC. I think I know the number, but you don't call yourself a lot. But 889-1800, I do remember that, because when I first got elected, that was Roy Blunt's number. He'd had for 14 years as congressman from this district, and that's what people, the first thing they said, whatever you do, don't keep Roy's number. And I said, why? And they said, oh, you got some people, same people call every day, and they'll drive you crazy. And I said, well, we're there to serve people. If they want to call and we can help them, that's fine. So I made sure that we kept that same number that Roy used to have, and I'm not sure if Mel Hancock had it before him, but 889-1800.
So consistency in carrying that through. So, well, as we look to the new year, if we were to visit, 3 months from now and follow up on what's happened in Washington, what would you like to say, in March of 2019? This is what we've done so far.
Well, I'd like to say that we've protected the southern border. I hope we get the wall started down there. I think for drugs, for illegal immigration, we want legal immigration. We need legal immigrants in this country. But people coming over, there was a very unfortunate, tragic situation the other day that a fellow down there thought it'd be a good idea to bring his daughter across the desert for a couple of weeks, a 7-year-old, if you can imagine. And then when she got up there, she felt sick, felt ill. He turned her into the authorities, and then she deceased. And, everyone's focusing on that. They're not focusing on the MS-13 people that have cut up high school students and slaughtered them. And, they don't get concerned about what the illegals do when they get into this country. So I think that one thing I'd like to see happen is that we actually do get that wall built and get tighter security and make sure we can vet people coming into this country. I also hope we can get an infrastructure project working across the United States. And I told the president that when he first got elected. I said, don't go after health care. Don't do health care first. Let's do infrastructure and work with the Democrats. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. They went for health care first, which they couldn't get done with the. But now there's a new court decision on health care, so that's going to have to be revisited also. But I want people to know that the existing Obamacare is in place. Nothing's going to change. It's staying like it is until this thing probably works its way up to the Supreme Court. In the meantime, we need to be working with the Democrats and the Republicans and get together and figure out a better way forward on health care, because I think that this may be upheld, because everyone's thought it was unconstitutional from day one.
So a lot of things still to come from Washington. So, well, Congressman, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with us and sharing once again with the people who are watching today.
You're always great, Judy. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and don't ever invite me unless you want me to come, because I'll always show up.
Well, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us this week for Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.